All right, here we go. Well, welcome to the US Web Design System monthly call for March of 2020. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us this month. We're going to try to cover a lot today, but not take up too much of your time. I apologize in advance if some of the presentation is a little raggedy. I do my best, but honestly, a couple slides aren't what they should have been. But I'm going to power through here. We start with some product updates, and then go a little bit into how we've been improving the color system and normalizing it and making it more consistent. We're going to look at the Design System 2020 roadmap, and then we should have some time for questions at the end. So jumping right into it, product updates. Available right now, came out just yesterday, is Design System 2.6.0. Another sweet minor version available now. Has some bug fixes in it. We fixed what looked like it was a long-standing bug that I didn't actually hear about until just recently, a bug with the output of our utility classes with pseudo classes not outputting properly, like some of the active and hover and those kinds of pseudo classes were having some errors, but that is all fixed now, and utility classes are better than they were. There's also a little bug in the letter spacing function where if you entered the 1 token for letter spacing 1, like it wasn't outputting the same value as if you applied as if you did it with a utility mix-in, or if you used a utility class for letter spacing 1. And that's fixed now. And we also made some improvements to search markup and styles. There had been a little bit of back and forth over the last few releases about search markup. I think our search markup now is looking good. It's very clean, and all the styles we have now in there should work with any of the markups in version 2. There were some problems with search button sort of breaking over a line at small device sizes, and that is no longer happening. So search is all tidied up. Looking good. None of these issues are breaking issues, so when you upgrade to 2.6, you should just see things working better and nothing working worse. Knock wood. And then I think the biggest thing in Design System 2.6 is we completed the vivid color families in the color system. Previous to 2.6, we'd had the full grades for every color family from sort of 0 or I guess 5 to 90 in all of the color families. But the vivid palette was more patchy. There were only some vivid variants, and that could cause some problems when you're trying to move from color family to color family with theming. You didn't know if you could rely on having 60V available in every color family. Now we have complete vivid color families that go from 5 to 80, also 0 if you want to include white, from 5 to 80 in every family. So it's a lot more reliable if you're switching families and you want vivid variants. And we also made a couple color changes just to improve our consistency and have sort of better guidance around what it means for a color to be a certain grade. And I'll get into that a little bit later too. Essentially what it meant is that we changed the value of a couple colors just a little bit to get them within a specified relative luminance range. So not a lot mostly subtle changes, but a few changes toward making our color system more consistent. Also available now, Public Sans is now in Google Apps, which is very nice. So you can access Public Sans in Google Slides, Google Docs, and Google Sheets, which is something we've been waiting for a while, and it finally happened. And now I'm using it in my Google Docs, and that feels pretty good. Also, Public Sans variable font is up on Google Fonts. This might have happened for a while. I just sort of noticed it recently. But if you're interested in experimenting with variable fonts, you can download that through Google Fonts, the variable font version of Public Sans. You can also download the variable font version of Public Sans through the package that you get at publicsans.digital.gov, but it's cool to see it available on Google Fonts. Also with a previewer on there, so you can like move a little slider around on the site to show you know, how you can change the weight of Public Sans in a very granular way using variable fonts. The whole idea with variable fonts is it's sort of like the one font file holds all the information for like any possible weight of the font, or any. Or you can include other variants as well. But what it delivers is a small font file that includes pretty much everything you need. So you're not having to include all these different weights of a font. You just include one, and that one font does everything. So once we get a little bit better browser support, that's something that will hopefully cut down on page weight and page footprint as we move forward using variable fonts. We can begin to implement this with progressive enhancement, and I think that's something we're going to try to bring soon to the design system. That's available now on Google Fonts. It's also available through publicsans.digital.gov, and we're going to work to make it to really turn on that functionality in the design system soon. And coming next week, some improvements to USWDS for designers, to the sketch file, to make that sketch file easier to use, faster, just a little bit more comprehensible. We've talked to designers who've been using that sketch file, have a bunch of changes coming up, and I'll actually be showing you a little bit of that in the call very soon. It also will be attached to all the new vivid colors. And, you know, very soon, how soon is now? It is now. And I can just show a quick sneak peek of what is coming in USWDS for designers soon. So bop over here to my sketch file and hide that. One of the things that I can show with the new version of the sketch file is that previously we had all kinds of, we had a lot of libraries. And now we're trying to consolidate those libraries just down to, essentially to one, really. And now there's this USWDS library, and you'll see that all the colors are in one sort of color spot, where if you want to access the colors, they're all just here. They're not in separate files. You can just jump into them really fast, add a color block somewhere, or similarly apply a layer style. The new versions of Sketch are really fast and nice when it comes to filtering. So if you're looking for something like a red warm variant, it's easy to just find it and sort of add it really quickly. And we're also working to sort of organize these things a little bit better. So you're more able to apply these things to your own project. Trying to keep things in the USWDS library that are really static and don't change, and building out a project file, a starter project file you could start any project with that would have all of your sort of project specific stuff and all of the design system components in it. So this is an example of a project file, and if you wanted to insert something from this document, there are design system components in it, and we could do, where did it go? We could do something like adding adding something really, how about a search? That's a little bit more fun. So you can add a search right there. And all these components sort of live in here and you're able to sort of edit them a little simpler and not worry about affecting every project file you have linked by mistakenly editing a master. Similarly, the colors for a theme and for your theme and your state colors all live in the project sketch file now. So if you zoom over into the symbols section, this is where you can modify your state colors. So if I wanted to change my primary colors, for instance, into something that's green warm, let's just say 50, make you 50 vivid, make you 60, yeah, make you, yeah, go away zoom. And then just update those. Update this sort of in your file and hit the style updates. And then when I go back to look at my thing at the front here, everything is colored. She's back, now she's wearing a green sweatshirt and there's a green button and there's green search here. We're also doing some work to make it easier to customize component styles sort of on the fly and to just organize everything better overall. So I think it's going to be a big improvement to the way we're using sketch files, and I'm going to be excited to release it to folks next week. So heading back over here into, look at that later. Heading back over into this, getting now sort of into the meat of what I want to talk about today, which is the improvements that we've made to the color system. And if you're familiar with the design system color system, you kind of know this USWDS color wheel. And sort of the way the color wheel works is that there are different color families that go around it. We have 22 color families that go sort of around in this circle. And a circle sort of corresponds to degrees around a circle. Circle is the circle defined as hue and sort of the hue, saturation, lightness, or the hue, saturation, brightness color model, where up at the top at 12 o'clock at 0 degrees, you've got red, moving around 90 degrees to green, 180 degrees to sort of cyan, 270 over here to a purple, getting warmer and back to red. So you can sort of define a hue by its position on a wheel, and we have sort of arranged the hues in our color family around the wheel of the hue model here. And this is a color family. This is the red color family, and the way we've broken down a color family is with grades, and the grades go from 5 to 90, 5 and then 10 to 90 in increments of 10, where white is 0 and black is 100. And then there are also vivid variants as well that are more saturated or colorful or sort of poppy. And all of these have implications for accessibility through something that we call magic number. So each color has a grade, and the difference between two grades is this thing called the magic number. So if the difference between, say, red 50 and red 10 is 40, and 40, if you have a difference of 40 or a magic number of 40, that is a AA large color contrast. Similarly, if you have a difference of 50 between any two colors, any two grades, that's WCAG AA contrast. And a difference of 70 would always assure AAA color contrast. So, you know, why does this work? Even between color families, how can we say that that this is true? How can we be so confident that this will work? And the way we can be confident about this is by beginning to understand this concept of relative luminance. And so relative luminance is kind of the key to all of this. Relative luminance is a sort of a value or a calculation. It's something like perceptual brightness or radiance. You can enter any color value has a relative luminance value as well. And a way of thinking about it is that 100% luminance is white and 0% luminance is black, and everything else is kind of in the middle, and it all a little bit depends on the mechanics of our eyes and how we actually see, the biology of how we see. And all this is captured in what you by the W3C in a relatively complicated function, and yeah, so it's complicated, but luckily you don't have to do this math sort of every time. There are some tools that you can use to find the relative luminance of any color value. But the online calculators are kind of a grab bag. You know, when we were doing this work, we found that we weren't always finding what we expected. Like there was one this work with color one when it was coming up, when we were looking at the luminance there, they weren't the right values. A reliable one is this one at Planet Calc, and also, you know, JS tools like Chroma.js, those kind of color libraries are reliable as well if you're building your own tools to make your own color converter or make your own something like a contrast checker, because contrast ratio is based on this idea of relative luminance, where it's the relative luminance of the lighter color plus 5% plus the over the relative luminance of the darker color plus 5%, and that's how you calculate contrast. So like AA large contrast ratio of 3:1 is that the light color has to be at least 3 times the value of the dark color. Similarly with AA and with AAA as well. So, you know, how do we use this this information to build our grade system? Yeah. Well, we can start right in the middle at grade 50. And one thing we know about grade 50 is that it's 50 away from both 0 and 100. It needs to have AA contrast between 0 and 100. So then you can do a little bit of math. You can say sort of that the bottom one, sort of 0 plus 5 divided by, or sorry, our value plus 5 divided by 5 has to be 4.5, AA contrast. And on the other side, like 105, this dark value over the, sorry, I think I've bollocksed it a bit here. But anyhow, you get from either side that these things converge at 18. 18 is sort of essentially our target luminance for 50. And that's where we can begin to start. And once we have everything here at 18, then we can begin to fill the rest in. If 50 is the middle and 18 is the luminance, we can begin to fill the rest of the palette in and make the sort of spaces even between them. We make the spaces even between these things at first sort of perceptually. And we should note really also that we've calculated this middle value at 50, but it's not 50% lightness. It's actually 46% lightness. It's a little bit darker than the actual middle point in lightness. And then we can kind of work out from there and begin to build these spaces that are approximately equal between our steps in the grade. Because 46 is a little bit darker, the steps between 50 and 100 are a little bit smaller than the steps between 50 and 0. But they're similar, and we wanted to use this to have like an even and sort of reliable range of colors between 0 and 100 that felt like the step between 40 and 50 seemed close to the step between 70 and 80, or between 0 and 10. So if we look at it for grayscale, we can evaluate the lightness of each number in the grayscale, and this delta here is the difference between values as we go down. We see that it's relatively even, and we can use this as our target, as a starting point for our luminance targets. So we can take all of these and convert these pure gray values in lightness into their equivalent value in luminance. So we see here, 0 is 100% luminance, 100 is 0% luminance. That gets you a little bit, gets you turned a little bit backwards, but such is life. So this was the starting point for our target luminance values for the color system. And we began to use those target values as our starting point, and we tried to play with them a bit to make sure that they worked. And what we did when we were doing that was that we were using a sheet, sort of like this sheet. And everything in here shows the contrast relationship between two grade values. So grade 40 of some value and grade, let's just say 0. And we can change the value that we're checking, move it up and down, and begin to see like when things fall out of alignment. So if we move this up to 0.2, that begins to be too light. It doesn't have the appropriate AA relationship between 0 and 50. That number is too light. Or similarly, 0.1. Now it doesn't work over here. It's too light over here. So you can begin to play with these relationships a little bit to find the range around our targets where it works, and with that we can build out some actual ranges that work with the contrast for every grade. So every grade has an acceptable luminance range over here that works every time, and every color in the design system has a luminance value, and we can check to see like how well they live within those ranges. But the way we've done it isn't necessarily the only way to do it. There are other ways to sort of calculate how you might put might assign luminance ranges from grade to grade within a color system. And we got a nice issue in at our GitHub repo that sort of proposed a different way of thinking about it, in a way that I might think of as, these are the current ranges for the design system over here on the left, and this other one is one that sort of is a derived system that sort of maximizes the coverage. And this is a complicated bit of numbers to look at, but we can look at it in a slightly less complicated way in a graph here. If we just focus on the graph at the top, these are the luminance ranges that we saw in that chart, plotted on luminance here, from 100% luminance over here at the left to 0% luminance over at the right. Black is 0, white is 100. And this max coverage proposal is the line we see at the very top. And you can see the ranges cover almost the whole length of the spectrum. There aren't a lot of gaps. And looking at this, you can also see the difference in luminance values versus lightness values, where lightness is sort of an arithmetic sequence. It's similar. Like 50 is right in the middle. Of 50% gray is right in the middle. Relative luminance is more of a geometric sequence, where the difference between darker values is less than the difference between lighter values. So if we look at where grade 50 actually is, it's on the top, it's way over to the right side. Grade 50 on the bottom is sort of in the middle. So when we do it, so when we graph it this way, it's a little bit easier to see the evenness against lightness than against luminance. But if you look at this, one of this proposed second kind of model, the coverage model, you can see with the pink lines that the coverage model covers a lot of the spectrum. There's still a couple places like little no man's lands where the dragons live in the model, but that coverage model covers a lot versus the design system coverage model, which covers which covers less, but is more consistent in the range of the grades and the distance sort of between them. And I think the coverage model is really interesting, but the fact that it has certain kinds of quirks, that it has some ranges that are really big and some that are really small, was just not a sort of model that was ended up not the sort of model that could work for the design system, because you know, we really are trying to be even, and we're trying to be predictable, and we're trying to sort of be consistent, and we're trying to say that, you know, our grade of 30 should be relatively similar, should have a similar shape to our grade of 20 or our grade of 80. And in some of these other models, like 80 is this teeny tiny sliver, and 30 is this enormous thing. So that really pointed to, you know, our approach being the proper approach for the design system, that we are sort of focused on consistency and sort of predictability and reliability, and that our grade range model, while it left out some of the spectrum, it had more gaps, it was more appropriate for the design system. Because what we really care about is for every grade that the colors sort of feel consistent. It's hard to see here, but this is grade 5. As we move out the color wheel, grade 10, grade 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. So if we go up and down this thing, we want the colors to feel like they're about the same weight as we go up and down. And that's what we're aiming for in the design system, to have colors that feel the same as you move around the spectrum. And so that's where we landed with our grade ranges. And this is something that we have now published, this luminance range guidance for each of our grades. We've published this on the design system website in the color section of the color tokens. And this is what we're now sort of making sure that we're normalizing all of our values to. Just to be clear again, these are all the luminance values here, like 100 or 35. These are all luminance values that are multiplied by 100, just for ease of looking at them. Relative luminance goes from 0 to 1, but it's a little bit easier when you multiply it by 100 to see what's actually going on. So this is the luminance grade guidance that we've developed, and this is what we're targeting when we're trying to develop good colors. And I may as well show while I have it. We have another tool called our luminance tool, and this tool sort of allows us to set some kind of targets or some colors that we're starting with. We can plug a color in that we're working on, and then we can kind of tweak it a little bit. We can change its hue or its lightness, and you'll see as you change the lightness, the luminance goes up and down. So if we know that we want to hit 25 luminance somewhere, we can sort of go around here and we can begin to tweak some of the values until we get something that is closer to the appearance that we want. And that way we can make sure that we're getting hues that are appropriate and that fit, but also fit within the rubric, so that every grade works the way it's supposed to work. And so yeah, so we've published this on designsystem.digital.gov, and that's going to be sort of our canonical luminance guidance going forward. There are a couple colors that had sort of strayed out of that range. We sort of reined them back, and now everything is now not only every color is more consistent, but there were like 3 combinations that failed contrast check, and now there are no combinations that fail the contrast check. We also had to fix our contrast checker because it was missing a few. So anyhow, that's where that lives, and that's what really kind of like allowed us to. That's what really allowed us to fill out this. To fill out all of the grades in the Vivid palette, because this is where we were in Design System 2.5.1, and this is these are the colors that are now available in 2.6. So, oops, sorry. So, yeah. So we went from there to there. Where is that? There we go. And this allowed us to add all these things relatively quickly and reliably in a way that we could trust that we were adding all of these colors in a way that would work for everyone. Now, what this also allows is something interesting, and that's that. And that's that as of just a couple of releases ago, you can now add sort of custom hex values into your theme and state colors. Because we know that teams occasionally need to use colors that aren't design system color tokens, but they're interested in knowing, like, what does my custom color token, what grade is this custom color that I have? And now that we have this luminance guidance, we can point teams to this luminance guidance, and we say, okay, you have this custom color over here, this custom hex. You plugged it into a luminance calculator. You've learned that it's 5.5% luminance. Its grade equivalent is 70. And there are some that wouldn't fit either. So if you have a custom color like this one, you see that it's a luminance of 32.1. Well, that's one that will sort of go in between the 40 grade and the 50 grade. That would sort of be the equivalent of 45. You could assign it a 45, and then all the same sort of magic number calculations would still be in effect. So in this way, teams can use sort of the power, sort of conceptual power of design system grading, even with custom hex. Now that we have this now that we have the Luminance grade model behind it. So that's just a little look at how we build colors, what we're checking for, and why the color grade system in the color system actually works. Now we have a few minutes just to go over the Design System 2020 roadmap. We're a few months into 2020. Things can always change, but we've done a lot of thinking about what we want to accomplish in 2020 and why we want to accomplish it. We have some, I think, sort of ambitious plans for 2020. We laid a lot of groundwork with Design System 2.0. We had a lot of work in the last year, sort of around 21st century idea, and now it's time to really start building out what we can do with Design System 2.0 in 2020. That's a lot of 2s and 0s. And so when we're thinking about a roadmap, we want to put it in the context of why we're doing what we're doing. Like, what are we planning to do, and why are we planning to do it? So this ties into what we think of as a vision for a design system. Like, what do we want to see? Like, we have this design system here. Like, what's the result? Like, what do we want to what do we hope to be seeing as a result of the design system existing? And I think really what we're looking to see are empowered agency teams sharing solutions, using effective human-centered design practices, and just improving the lives of the public. Like, I think that's really what it's all about. If that's a place where that's no static place, but getting to something like that feels really good, and that's sort of why we're doing what we're doing. So what is it that we do? We make it easier to build accessible, mobile-friendly government websites. That's sort of like our mission. Our mission is to be a design system for the U.S. government. So what do we believe in? These are the design principles. These are USWDS principles that apply to any design system project, and they're always important considerations, no matter what project or what situation. It's just start with real user needs, earn trust, embrace accessibility, promote continuity, and listen. Like, these are the things that we want to be doing with our own work. We want to be talking to partners about doing. We want to be thinking about any decision in relationship to these principles. We want to have our vision in mind. We know what it is we're building. These are all the goals that we have, that we believe in. And then at sort of a product layer, maybe a little bit below it, like, how do we shape our product in the spirit of those goals? And these are maybe a little bit drafty, but we're going to be publishing them to the Design System site soon. Like, our product sort of principles are, like, start simple, build what helps the most, make the easiest thing the best thing, favor adaptability and avoid lock-in, show our work, like that the process is part of the product, and just be predictable. I think one of the ways of thinking about product principles is you try to make certain kinds of decisions as a team. Like, why are you making these decisions? What's important to you? Like, if the team changed, the composition of the team, like, people move in and out, like, how do you have that sort of continuity, like, in the product? Like, what do you really care about? And I think that from the product side, these are things that we really care about. And these are things that sort of guide what we're building. Which sort of leads us now to blah, 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 a lot of talking about roadmap. This is what we're hoping to do for 2020. Build the most requested new components. Like, it's really time to put the pedal to the metal and start like building out some of the things that people have been asking for a while, and we haven't done yet. This is the time to do it. We are doing it now. We have things going on right now, and we're building the capacity to do even more. So some of the things on our list right now, working on card, breadcrumb, tooltip, data visualization guidance, date picker, range picker, time pickers, all the pickers, character limit for fields, button groups, combo box, progress bar, working on that anchor, which we've seen from Digitalgov, working on tabs and icons. There are some more things on the list too, but these are the first things right now, the first priority things. Currently working on these, working on card. We should see card by the end of the month. Card is we're beginning to finalize card, and I think we'll be able to show it to you in March. We're working on finalizing data visualization guidance. This is not going to cover all kinds of data visualizations, but it's going to be a starting point for how we talk about data visualization through the lens of the design system. And we also have a team, dedicated team, working on advanced form fields and form components, including those pickers that have been requested for a long time, and we're going to be delivering on them very soon. Second thing on the roadmap is really thinking more about being able to, and this might not be exactly the right way of capturing it, but it's kind of role-based guides to getting started with the design system. Really, it's taking a hard look at our website and how we present the design system and thinking about, we have these types of people who use it. How is the information on our site organized and presented so that people can get started using the design system easily from a number of different perspectives. We know that it can be a lift, and we also know that there are all kinds of different people who will be exposed to the design system via 21st century idea and design principles. It's not all about designers and developers. They're all different kinds of designers and developers as well. Like, it's also about program managers, it's also about researchers, it's also about different people who want to be involved in knowing what the design system has and how to interface with it. So we need to really focus on how we are presenting what we do to the people who use it. You know, there's a couple ways of looking at it, like whether it's through a lens of a program manager or a designer, or a developer, or researcher. We also understand that there are different kinds of roles like this. So, but what we're really going to be focusing on is like, how do you do what you need to do with the design system, and how is our website helping you do that as well as possible. Also, rebuilding the component library. This is sort of a big kind of infrastructure goal for the design system, but our current component library solution is not a great solution. And we know that a design system component library could not only work better for us, but it could do more for the teams that use USWDS as well. So what we hope to accomplish by rebuilding the component library is to modularize our component structure and to make it easier for teams and projects to import just the parts of the design system that they need. And we can reflect that in the way that in the structure and the organization of our design system and the way we publish it to NPM. We also think that this could be a powerful way to empower component ingestion, like that our component library could be a better tool for powering other teams' design systems. That it doesn't have to be just an internal tool. It's something that that could be useful for others as well. similarly to a way where a team might use a solution like Storybook or Pattern Lab or something like that to be where the components live that their framework is ingesting. We think that we can begin to provide that natively through the design system. This would also this could do something like create a local style guide builder. You've built a site based on the design system. You want to generate your own sort of style guide and style references for your own implementation. We think that a USWDS component library could help power that as well. And this should also just improve the maintainability of the design system. It should help us avoid lock-in. It should help us get out of situations where we feel stuck. This should also help us improve the upgrade path in the future as we work toward a better way of delivering our canonical markup. And reduce vulnerabilities. So this is probably one of the biggest sort of infrastructure goals for the design system in 2020. We want to keep improving the design assets. I think we're going to have a good release for that very soon, but we know that that USWDS for designers is important, and teams use it. We know that we can't and don't provide everything that we need. We're getting more help from the Figma side. Thank you, Maya. Check in USWDS Public for a little bit more. Search for Figma in there and you'll find a little bit more about Figma. For various reasons, we can't do anything on our side with Figma, but we're getting some community lift there. Really appreciate it. But we also want to be improving our assets through Sketch as well. So we know teams use it. We know that it could be simpler and better, and it will be. Developing our contribution model it sort of goes hand in hand with a lot of these other kinds of goals, but it really means clarifying what it means to contribute back to the design system. How to contribute back to the design system, how to contribute something like a component or a variant or a new piece of guidance, like what do we expect of a contribution? How do we evaluate a contribution? And how to make that process predictable and easy for folks who want to contribute. Because we know that there's a lot of value out there that we aren't able to capture, and we want to be able to grow the design system faster and better. And being clear about our contribution model is one way to do that. We've got to improve our test suite internally. There's lots of little quirks with it right now. The overall goal is we want to make sure that every design system release is as reliable as it can be. We want to reduce the amount of little regression bugs that we find. It's not good, and it's annoying, and we can do a better job of preventing some of these small regressions, and that's another big goal as well, just to be more reliable in what we deliver. I think we're already pretty reliable. We can and should be even better with how we're testing everything that we do. So improving our test suites internally is another big roadmap goal. And that's it. That's it. But that's really what we're planning to do in 2020. Sort of granular goals and big goals. It's all, of course, subject to change. The design principles, like start from real user needs, listen, like we're paying attention, and we want to be responsive to what we see as real user needs. So this is what we're planning to do, and we're ramping up the internal capacity to make sure that we can deliver on your expectations of us. So I'm pretty excited about that. There's a lot to do. There's a lot that I would like to do, and there's a lot that's coming soon. We'll have this published on the website. We can talk about it in Design System Public, USWDS Public, and we can go from there. So with that is everything that I had planned to talk about. We do have time for Q&A, so I will open up the chat. And see what we've got. Will there be XD support? There is currently XD support. So if you look at on the design system website on tools for designers, you will find a link to XD assets. We support, I think we support the most current version of Adobe XD. There are known issues with backwards compatibility with XD. So unfortunately, we can't support a lot of backwards compatibility for XD, but we do support the most current version of XD. So you ought to be able to use that. I'm happy to be able to do that for Adobe XD users. Can we guarantee luminance from device to device or manufacturer to manufacturer? Well, that's kind of a good question. You can't really. If someone turned their brightness all the way down, you know, you're going to have contrast issues, I think, regardless of what you of what's set up. So situationally and in a device sort of style way, you can't be 100%. You can only really go by the WCAG guidance, and luminance is our rule of thumb for right now. Luminance is based on conversions to sRGB. There will be some differences in something like P3 or a wider gamut model, but that should not affect contrast calculation. It's calculated by WCAG, and it should not have a strong adverse effect on the actual perceptual contrast of your page beyond what we can control. We can't control for brightness turned down all the way, but we can do our best. How about React components? Where does it fall on the roadmap? Currently, React components do not fall on the roadmap in a totally clear or obvious way. That said, I think that there is an open conversation about the canonical output format for our components, and we try to be implementation agnostic as much as possible. But we also know that we could do better in distributing our markup than just copy and paste HTML. So part of the discussion about rebuilding our component library will involve how we're actually writing and templating our components. So it's possible that there might be something that relates to React. It's possible that there might be something that relates to web components. It might be possible that could be something that relates to Twig or something else like that. But that's kind of related to the component library roadmap issue, but there's no specific roadmap issue around delivering the components in any specific output format. What kind of local style guide builder are you looking at? I mean, I mentioned kind of a couple sort of examples of this, like I think, and when I say style guide builder, I'm really kind of collapsing that together with like library viewer, so I think two of the ones that are most on folks' minds are like Pattern Lab and Storybook. Really are the ones that you hear about most. Those are some of the ones that are initially on our minds, but this is subject to certainly more research. I hope that was a useful answer. Do you have plans to incorporate any kind of standard SEO or structured data markup in components like the header? I think that's a good idea. It's not explicitly in the roadmap, but I do think that it's the kind of project that we could begin to take up sort of in the roadmap cracks. I think it is useful for us to provide more guidance around metadata in the sort of header level, and just as you say, structured data or schema sort of microformats at the sort of component or the markup level. It's probably a real coordinated response to structured data markup is probably out of the scope of what we hope to accomplish in this year. But I would love to hear more about it. I think maybe more guidance around metadata is something that we might expect to be able to provide. Anything else? Looks like we got 2 minutes. Man, timed it again. Perfect. Yeah, if there aren't any other questions, I'm happy to give you back that 1.5 minutes. I hope that everybody is doing well. I really appreciate you coming out to talk with us this month. And yeah, act with empathy. Be nice out there. Thank you.